Thank you all. At this time, we're going to call to order the MARTA Board of Directors meeting for December 9th, 2021. May I have everyone sign in, please? Work session, I'm sorry, work session. Whew. I'm a little stressed here, Jim. They just told me I got to turn my rental car in on the way here. Great. May I have a motion for approval of the November 11th, 2021 work session minutes?
Ms. Hartage, I approve.
And I'll second that.
At this time, let us vote. Thank you very much. The motion passes. The minutes are accepted. At this time, we will hear a report from the nominating committee. Mr. Ash?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I guess it's afternoon now. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Earlier today, the nominating committee met and has unanimously nominated for action at our full board that the officers currently serving continue to serve for another year. So that would be Chair Rita Scott, immediate past Chair Frida Hartage, Roberta Abdul Salam as the Vice Chair, Rod Frierson as the Secretary, and myself as the Treasurer.
Thank you. I seem to be having a great, thank you, a little. Thank you, Mr. Chair of the Nominating Committee, Mr. Ash. I'd like to add a couple things under the Chair's report for the 2021 year. And that is to say that we've had an exciting yet challenging year. So I first want to thank the MARTA staff for all that you've done to keep things on task. We've had some hiccups, we've had some pauses, but we've stayed on task, and that's very important. So without a doubt, I'd like to say thank you. We're at the end of the year, and I'd like for our board to give you a round of applause. Thank you again. Also, with that being said, I wanted to make sure to also thank my fellow DeKalb County board members for participating in the groundbreaking ceremony of the Indian Creek train station, which was very well attended, not only by MARTA and its leadership, which was expected, but we were also greeted by our federal elected employees, not employees, representatives, and our state, local, and county. Those that participated, it was very exciting. I received numerous calls. The information went out throughout the DeKalb newspapers, and as you all know, that was so important that that impression be there. Thank you so much. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to our GM and CEO, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and let me also thank on behalf of the staff, the board, for all of your support during this difficult year of 2021. I agree and echo the appreciation of the staff, but I think it's also important to recognize the support of the board over this past year and all the hard work that you've done. So thank you. We have a few briefings that I'd like to run through fairly quickly. We do have, the board will go into executive session for a number of matters. So the first presentation, Bill Bailey come up and give us a briefing on the green bonds and some great news around this transaction. So,
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Good afternoon, Chair Scott, members of the MARTA Board of Directors, and Mr. Parker. I'm here to present the results of a highly successful refunding transaction on which we briefed the Business Management Committee last month. The new bond series will be the MARTA Bond Series 2021D, 2021E1, and 2021E2. Next slide, please. And these are the results. The bonds that were refunded were the 2014A and the 2015A bonds. The new bond par values are, for the 2021D, which are taxable, $275,630,000. The 2021E1, which are tax exempt, are $60,950,000. And the 2021E2, which are also tax exempt, are $32,983,000 for a total of $369,563,000. The life of the bonds are 15.1 years. The total all-in cost or tick rate is only 2.66%. The aggregate gross savings were $62 million over the life of the bonds, and that translates to a net present value savings of $47.3 million, or 13.5%. This will save us annually $2.6 million. The tender and exchange feature resulted in an incremental increased savings of $4.4 million, and this was the first time that we did this very innovative structure. And also, these are the first MARTA's certified green bonds. And with the green bonds and the tender and exchange feature, we were able to attract additional investors and increase our savings. Thank you.
you can try. Thank you, Bill and Kevin and Raj for pulling this together. It's a important transaction, and I think the green component is something that's a new innovative thing that we're focusing on. So, next, I would like to ask Paula Nash to come up and give the board a little briefing on our success around implementing our DBE program and the goals that we've established around that. So, Paula?
Thank you. Good afternoon and happy holidays, Madam Chair Scott, the members of the board, and Mr. Parker. I'm Paula Nash. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And as many of you know, one of the programs under our department, our office, is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, or the DBE program. So our office has just submitted its semi-annual report, and it's the end of the year report for the federal fiscal year 2021. And so we figured this was a good time to actually give you an update as to how we have done for the federal fiscal year 2021. Next slide, please. So let me start by saying this is just a report on our federal procurements. So I think all of you know, because MARTA is a recipient of federal funds, we have to have a DBE program. So every 3 years, we actually have to submit to the FTA our federal fiscal year DBE goals. And for 2021 through 2023, that DBE goal is 23%. Now, the FTA also requires us to give a breakdown of how much of that goal will be through race-conscious means and how much through race-neutral means. So race-conscious means is 19%, race-neutral means is 4%. So I've given on this slide the definition or the explanation of pretty much what the FTA says race-conscious and race-neutral should be. But I want to actually simplify that and give a better definition, I think. So race conscious is when we actually put goals on our procurements, and as a result of that goal, we get DBE participation. Now, race neutral is when we do not put goals on our procurements, but we still get DBE participation. So why is that important? Well, it's important because the FTA says that we should try to get as much of that triannual DBE goal through race-neutral means if possible. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a historical perspective, a recent historical perspective of how we have done with our DBE goal achievement. And as you see, the blue column is the actual goal for FY 2018 through 2021, and the orange is what we have achieved. And if you look to the last columns for federal fiscal year 2021, the goal is 23%, and we have achieved 26%. So we have exceeded our goal for this year. Next slide, please. Now, this slide kind of gives a breakdown of the race-neutral versus race-conscious split. The orange slice of the pie is race-neutral, and the gold is race-conscious. As you recall, I just said that our goal for race-neutral is 4%, and in FFY 2018, even though we exceeded the goal, we did not have race-neutral content. It was all race-conscious. The FTA brought that to our attention. And so since then, we have actually exceeded our race-neutral goal. And for federal fiscal year 2021, we actually doubled it. It's 8.6%. Next slide, please. So to sum it up, for federal fiscal year 2021, we have exceeded our DBE goal by getting an achievement of 26%. And we have also exceeded the race-neutral goal by achieving 8.6%. So we have overall done very well this year.
Paula, you know, one of the things that we're trying to move towards is moving from just compliance to a better understanding. So could you just take a few minutes to talk about the Diversity Matters program that we've initiated and where we're really trying to move the organization from just simply
Compliance.
focusing on compliance and encouraging more and more participation. And so if you could share a little bit around that program that's been very successful.
Yes, I will do that. So we have initiated a program with some of our top vendors, and by top vendors, I mean the monetary-wise. So these are vendors that have contracts that are over $25 million, and we have, as you see, MARTA has been successful in being compliant, but we want to do more than just be compliant with meeting our DBE goals. So we are moving towards, we have a program where we're actually working with the vendors and doing a workshop where we're stressing the importance of minority contracting or supplier diversity contracting and the benefits that that gives vendors in hopes of when they actually bid on contracts with MARTA, or even if they have present contracts, that they naturally look at getting minority participation or DBE participation. And ultimately, what that will do is increase that race-neutral means. So not just getting participation because we've put goals on contracts, but getting participation because it's the right and ethical thing to do.
Thank you. Any questions for Paula?
Yeah, just a few. My history goes back a ways, and I think it's changed a lot. And I'm not sure I understand the difference between a minority business enterprise and a disadvantaged business enterprise, and if those, is an MBE always a disadvantaged business enterprise? I know they're not, but I don't know whether you qualify it that way or not.
Sure. So that's a great question. Thank you so much for that question. There is a big difference in a minority business enterprise and a DBE program. And let me start by saying MARTA only has a DBE program. So, but the biggest difference is that the DBE program puts limits on the economical requirements. So to be a DBE vendor, your personal wealth cannot go beyond 1.32 million. So like one of the examples that we like to give is say that Oprah Winfrey can be a MBE. She cannot be a DBE. So that is kind of the biggest difference, is the economical portion to it. The socially disadvantaged portion is about the same for both programs, but the economical portion is the biggest difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And the final presentation, if I could ask Raj and Andrew Puffle to come up, and I guess Andrew's going to give the presentation. One of the things that, I'm sorry, Manjeet, I apologize. One of the things that the board has asked for, and we continue to work on, and Andrew is going to give a update to the board on a tool that we've developed, and I'm sure there'll be some questions about where we're going with this tool, and really trying to build some transparency, both for the public and the board and members of staff around where we are with our project. So, Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Parker, and thank you, Madam Chair, and to the board. Good afternoon. I'm excited to be here to talk to you all about the Project Snapshot tool today. It's a really great effort that I think that we've got going on, like Mr. Parker said. And so if I can hop to the next slide, I want to give a little bit of a background on why we're doing this. And so as you all know, we have a very large capital improvement program. And this year alone, we have more than 100 projects that represent more than $600 million in investment that range from really, really large things like you see in the image of the track renovation project, all the way down to smaller things and making sure that staff has the right technology in place to do our jobs every single day. And when Manjeet came on board earlier this year, one of the things that he quickly identified was a need to provide more information about that program. Right now, we've got a really big document that's got everything in there, but it's not very digestible, it's not very concise. It's something that you can go to, but we identified the need to be more concise and being able to communicate the information about this really big and very important program that we have. So if you go to the next slide, we kind of established a group of stakeholders within the agency across the authority to talk about what we think was best for how to actually go about doing that. And so we really came up with, this goal of the Project Snapshot tool, this tool that we've been building, is, like I said, to concisely and quickly communicate information about our capital improvement program to a very broad audience, whether that's board members, jurisdictions, the public, even staff members. It's hard to put your head around 140 projects that you've got going on if you're not working on them every single day. And so from there, we kind of established a couple of principles to guide the way that we actually developed what the tool looks like and to help keep us focused on making sure that we're achieving that goal. And those three things are fast implementation. We wanted to get this stood up pretty quickly. Second is to provide a snapshot of information. We see this as, here is a little bit about what is going on. And third, complement other project information efforts. So when we have more detailed project information and we have other project information, things being worked on in the authority, we can create links between the tool that we have built and those places where we have a lot more info than necessarily that just quick snapshot. So for the next slide. So to dig into what those actually, hitting those three principles look like, from a fast implementation perspective, we wanted to use something that we could quickly pick up. We weren't going to have to go out and get some new tool or new program put in place. And so we're really leaning hard on ArcGIS Online's story map. It's something that we have access to as staff right now and has a lot of great things that we could build in to the tool. Secondly, in terms of that snapshot of information, the way we've kind of broken things down is we're really focused on the projects that are within this current fiscal year. Those are the ones that we have the most information about, and so we can provide that information in the most interactive portions of the actual tool, which we'll get to here in a second. But we also want to recognize that the capital improvement program is not just what we're doing this year. It's got a 10-year horizon. We've got things that are further down the line. So we wanted to make sure that folks could also see those things. They might not have as much detail as the ones that we've got going on right now, but they're still going to be contained and still be visible to everybody who has access. The station rehabilitation program is a really good way to think about that. We've got stations right now that we're actively working on in this fiscal year. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be doing work on those other stations. It's just those are coming in further waves, coming in further phases. So the tool really focuses on the ones for this year, but also provides a little bit of an informational piece to show you, hey, we're still thinking about those, we're still working on them. And then the last piece of the snapshot of information is we wanted to provide the jurisdictions a way to see their snapshot. So there's some functionality in the tool that will allow each jurisdiction to filter and to see projects based on where they're located and which jurisdiction they are. Because we all care about everything that's in the program, but at the same time, we care about what our constituents have going on in their district. I care about what's going on around where I live, and so being able to provide that filter is something we felt was pretty important. And then lastly, just to touch on complementing other efforts. I mean, we just want to make sure that we're able to link together other efforts in terms of project information and make sure that that functionality exists in the tool. So next slide. So in terms of the outline of what this thing looks like, these first two are really, they just set the stage when you actually get into the tool and kind of give you that background and context that I've been talking about here. But then if we go to the next slide, these 2 pages are the primary interactive pieces that I'll show you a couple of screenshots of. The first is the geographic projects. And so what these are projects that we have a very solid, geographic location where a project is occurring that we can put on a map and display and show where that project is. The Bankhead platform extension is a really good example. It's not going anywhere. That's the project location. That's where we're working on it. The second piece, the second interactive kind of piece of the tool is the system-wide projects. And those are projects that don't necessarily fit well into a bucket of this location or that location. The enterprise data storage upgrade. It's an important project, but that's not something that we can necessarily go and say, here is where it is on the map. That's not really adding a lot of value. So that's kind of how we split our projects between the two. So if we go to the next slide, you'll actually see what the geographic projects page looks like. And so within this tool, you've got a big map over here on the right that's got all the projects within this geographic projects bucket per se. And users will start at a very high level with everything. And then over on the left side, you've got the filters. So we've kind of put projects into subcategories that, if I'm interested in station rehabilitation, I can click on that. It's going to filter the map. And then underneath that, I can select specific projects to drill down into and actually see the information about said project. So if we go to the next slide, this is a really good example, bringing it back to the Bankhead platform extension project. Filtered down into system station enhancements and then filtered down into the Bankhead platform extension project. I'm able to see those different pieces of information that we've kind of pulled together about that project and also see that location on the map. So if we go to the next slide, we've got the system-wide project page. And so this page has the same information, very similar setup. It just doesn't have a map because, again, these are projects that don't necessarily work particularly well and fit well from a geographic perspective. So you're able to filter over on the left based on the type of project and then see that information about said projects over on the right. So if we go to the next slide. So moving forward, what this necessarily looks like, right now we're kind of in the final piece of reviewing the tool, reviewing the functionality, making sure that everything's working right, making sure we've got the right project information in there. And then at the turn of the year, we're looking to actually release this publicly, and you all will be able to have access to it, take a look at it, poke around in it, see all of the projects that we've got in the CIP. And then following that, on a monthly basis, one of the key things moving forward is making sure that the information is staying up to date. And so on a monthly basis, we're going to be updating at a minimum the project budget information as those project budgets get approved so that they will be in there. And then as other pieces of information change, we will also push those out on a monthly update basis. And then from an annual and as needed basis, we're working on the fiscal year 2023 capital improvement program. We're starting to spin up and I'm working on that. That's a really good opportunity. This is kind of a starting point. Some of the things that we've done because we were looking for fast implementation coming off the shelf, we're going to have opportunities down the line. And as we update the CIP to update this with new functionality, fix some things if there's a particular feature that folks don't like and we hear about, being able to pivot really well is something that we want to be able to do with this moving forward. So thank you for your time. Any questions?
Let me just thank you, Andrew. You've put in a lot of energy around this, and I appreciate the efforts and also appreciate Manjeet's leadership around making sure that we are doing things that provide another level of transparency to our partners, to our board, to the public, and also, I think it's important to note that this is going to be a powerful tool that we'll also use within the organization just to better understand where these projects are. So, questions?
Yes. I got a couple of questions. I want to say thank you, Andrew, and I want to thank Maji and his staff for putting this together. Once again, this is a critical piece of information that we have to be looking at because we spend quite a bit of revenue, quite a bit of money in this project category, and it's long overdue. So I'm so happy to see that this come forward so we can kind of watch some of these projects. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I don't know if you have addressed it in this tool is the start date for some of these projects, because for me, I like to see just when it starts. I know it's in different phases, but I want to see how long it's taking us to finish some of these projects. So maybe it can lend some conversation to maybe what is the barriers that's causing it. Now I know that there are managers that's going to be managing these projects. I understand that, but I think it's important that if we start these projects and they meet the timeline we expected, we like to see them reach that. We just don't wait till we get to the very end and say, okay, now we realize we had to do this it's going to take us another 2 years. Yeah. But I just want to be able to ask some questions about what are those delays. So there's something to consider. But I think it's a great tool. I'm glad to see it's in place. I think it's critical for us to be able to look at this, and I want to say thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that comment. And I will say that because we've put the focus on the fiscal 2020 year to projects, so, those projects are projects that have money allocated to them for this year. So they are, whether they're very early in initiation or they're all the way out in closeout, those are the projects that we have actively going on. So, those are projects that you should see from a year-to-year perspective if they're moving forward, and that helps to create that transparency and accountability that if, I look in the tool now and the information for my project is the same as it was 8 months ago, call us up, let us know. That's, that's where we want to create that feedback loop of, hey, what are you guys doing with these projects? So thank you.
Just a few questions, if you don't mind. We've been talking about this for quite a while, about how to get to this, and this is interesting. I think one of the things that certainly you got a tremendous amount of information. Well, I can assure you, you don't want me plundering around in a lot of that stuff. You don't want me to have access to it. So I'm hopeful that there's some way that you can limit my access in there, because I can get in there and screw up anything. I'm telling you, get me in there. So just be careful about that. And also, too much knowledge can be too bad. But one of the things I am concerned about is the fun. You talked about are all projects going to be in here regardless of the level they're at? As long as they have a funding source
Correct.
designated? Is
So
that-
if the project is in the capital improvement
Yeah,
program, it will
so,
be in.
so the first wave, as Andrew said, is we're focusing on the projects that are funded in the current year, and quickly we will include all of the projects within the 10-year capital budget. So we'll be coming back to the board, obviously, at the end of this fiscal year for the approval of the capital budget for next fiscal year. That will define that set of projects, and we will include all those projects. So in theory, a project that's 9 years away from starting, that has money allocated within the capital budget would be in here with a date, showing the date that it's 9 years out to start, and maybe it's got a 3-year or whatever, and so much money is allocated, so.
Okay, well, an example might be the Lindbergh-Emery line. Is it?
Correct. So that would be.
That project has some money allocated to planning and all that, but not a funding source to build it, if you will. And is that something you would see in this report?
Yeah, so what we would show is, that's a funded project in the current fiscal year. It's got an amount of money allocated for it over the next, within the 10-year budget. Presumably not enough money to construct it all of that at this point, but that would be in there, and there would be a summary of how much was allocated for the project budgeted, and then in that case we would include information about the phases of the project and the overall funding needs.
Okay, so a project that is in the DeKalb County list of projects, but which we don't have any kind of funding source that we're aware of right now would not be part of this.
Correct. And although many of them have planning dollars associated with them. So if there are planning dollars, they would be
Would be
included in
shown
that.
in there.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of buckets of money that like Mr. Parker said, are we might not necessarily have all the money in hand right now to build all of these projects, but we've got planning studies, we've got other efforts to help move them towards that point. And so we want to make sure that we're being clear with everybody that, hey, while this might not necessarily have the long-term funding to get built right now, it doesn't mean we're not thinking about that project, we're not working on that project. We're allocating money in our capital improvement program to work towards it. If it's only $1 million right now, that might not be enough to build the $100 million line, but that $1 million is spent really well to prepare us to get into the later phases of those
So let me
projects.
give two sort of real-world examples of that, just to bring some clarity, so we're not talking conceptually. We are doing a corridor study for transit connectivity out to Stonecrest, right? So that's within our capital program. We're working on that. That would be in there in terms of, projects that we have allocated some number of funds for. A project that, if you think about the More MARTA City of Atlanta project, we prioritized, the board approved a set of projects to deliver. There are also projects like the infill stations that are not funded projects, and we're not doing any planning dollars on that. So for example, an infill station would not show up on the project because it's not a project that we're actively advancing that project. So if we're advancing it with planning dollars, we would show it. If it's just sort of an aspirational project that we've identified, maybe in a county's transit plan or the city's project list, but we're not advancing it, we wouldn't be including that.
Okay, well, two of the questions you're going to get from me probably is, first of all, why is it on the list, talking about a particular project, and then also, why is it not on the list?
Yeah.
In talking about a particular
Yeah.
project. And I think somehow you need to be prepared to deal with those types of, because
Yeah,
We may have been talking about a project for 10 years around here, and it
Yeah.
doesn't show up on the list. Well, what happens, you know?
Yeah,
Well, we don't have any money.
Yeah, the best way to bring clarity around that conversation is really for us to point to the 15th Amendment, right? That defined the projects that we've allocated resources towards. We've told the counties
Okay.
through a commitment that we're advancing a project. So,
It sounds like you got a good answer. The last thing I'll say is to me, most two important things are budget, and are we on budget, are we over budget, are we under budget, and also the schedule, and where we are on the schedule, and if the schedule lags behind, there needs to be some way for us to identify why it's lagging behind, what's going on there, and that type of information is not always available in a dashboard like this, but there are reasons for that, and how do we get for that, rather than having to come here and see that information and then ask why. Might be some way to do that, but anyway, thanks to you all who are doing this. I think this is a vital step in what we're trying to promote, because it gives us as board members a chance to understand a little bit about what's going on with this program and deal with it when people ask us about that kind of thing and where they're going. So congratulations on getting a good start on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Robbie had the next question, and then Mr. Jimmy.
I'll defer to my colleague.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Robbie. Bill just used a word, dashboard, and I've been thinking about dashboard, but you called this a snapshot, and that's what this is a snapshot. I was going to ask, we've talked about creating a dashboard that's outward-facing, where people that really care about this transit system can look and see, are we moving in the right direction? You know, are we making the progress that we committed to, things that are measurable and would make sense to people? And I hope we really are working on creating such a dashboard, and I wanted to volunteer to participate as somebody that might reflect on things or suggest some things as we move toward it. So it's kind of related to this, but it's, I know, a completely different thing.
Yeah, I think, you know, in my mind, and granted, we probably need to have some more conversations about it. So this is a project snapshot tool that is really going to serve as the dashboard for projects. And then, and we really have this already, our KPIs, a dashboard for KPIs, already exists, and I think there's some sort of packaging those two as a agency-wide dashboard so that it's clear that that's the whole dashboard, right?
Yep.
So.
Thank you. The question I have, or suggestion perhaps, is to build off the idea that there are some projects that we only have planning money for. There are some projects that we have more money than that, but not enough to get it done. And then there are some blessed projects that we have identified where all, and have in hand, or will have in hand, the money to actually pay for them. And a suggestion I have for you is perhaps we want to distinguish between those projects, maybe on a separate page, maybe some different way, because it took me a while when I first got here to be able to distinguish between the things that we spent a bunch of time talking about and even spending money on, but we had no plausible way to pay for. And so, you know, candidly, and I've said it a number of times, it felt to me like we were misleading people to keep talking about stuff that we're studying as if we're actually going to do it. If we don't have a plausible path to getting there, that's not to say that we shouldn't say that we're moving those things forward. But I think as part of the transparency, as part of the being clear both with our member jurisdictions and ultimately with the people they serve, that we serve, there should be a way for them to understand, okay, what is the stuff you're working on and what is the stuff that's is over the goal line, or at least, you know, that I can actually expect to have delivered without having to have some additional conversation about, are we getting money from the federal government? Are we going to pursue an additional sales tax? Are we going to do X, Y, or Z? Because I think it's really important that we not, and I think we've gotten much better about this over the years, that we not overpromise. Because that's when, or even appear to, even, I don't think that was the intent ever, but it had that effect to suggest to people that, oh, we're working on that. Nobody has any idea how we're ever going to do it, but we're working on it. You know, that,
Yeah,
we'll
let
take
me-
some flack for it, but I would rather take the flack on the front end.
Yeah, I know Manjeet wants to add to this, but I think that's critically important. And we started that level of transparency with a very deliberate changing of how we presented the 15th Amendment to make those projects. This is aspirational, this is funded, this is where we need federal funds, and I think embedding that concept into this information is critical, because otherwise people make assumptions. If I'm gonna talk about it and not tell you that it's aspirational, then the assumption is that you're doing it.
Yes, all good points, good discussion here. The phraseology typically used for these types of programs are fiscally constrained, meaning that you've got realistic funds to actually pursue the project and implement it. And then there's reasonably expected. Well, you don't have all the funds necessarily committed, but you've identified funding sources, say the capital investment grant program for FTA in the case of expansion programs, and pursuing a small starts grant, that it's reasonably expected. And then there's the aspirational wish list, which is fiscally unconstrained. And part of our efforts toward more transparency is to really work toward developing a strategic plan and more documentation about our program. And the 15th Amendment is a key part of that. And also just doing a better job with reporting. And so this snapshot tool is a piece in moving in that direction. So it's clear about this is our work program, this is what we know we can achieve, this is what we have to work toward achieving and how to do it.
Jim?
Just one thing real quick, Manjeet. When I hear you say fiscally constrained, I immediately put up my caution flag, because those of us that work in transportation policy know what that means. But to the layperson, hearing that something is fiscally constrained means you are constrained by the finances, so it's not going to happen. So we need to just be careful about what phrases we use when we're publicly facing.
Agreed.
That's it.
Good point.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Important advancement, and we're going to continue to, sequentially fine-tune this and make it a better product, but we will be rolling it out at the beginning of next calendar year. And then I do want to, is there a slide on the vaccination? There we go. So just a really brief update. We've made tremendous progress. Really hats off to starting with the board for taking an important position around the health and safety of our employees. Hats off to our employees. And, this is just a summary. If you look at our workforce, we're about 62% of our employees are represented, 38% non-represented. And then if we look at those two groups separately, 88% of our non-represented employees have been fully vaccinated, have uploaded their vaccination cards into our system. So we're tracking that. And then about 64% of our unionized or representative employees. This is a tremendous improvement over where we were when the board, took the position and the action that it took, and we continue to see these numbers in general publics for the 3 counties in the city of Atlanta. So, just wanted to give you an update on this. So, Madam Chair, excuse me, and then the final thing that I do want to mention, I'm not going to read them, but in the agenda are the dates for some upcoming meetings, including State of MARTA, Wednesday, January 12th, and looking forward to re-engaging a State of MARTA program, and the other meetings are listed here. So that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, one brief comment while we're on the COVID. Having ridden the train out here this morning, I will say that our mask enforcement has slipped a little since certainly over the summer and even in the fall. So, I mean, a little renewed focus on that, I think, would, particularly as cold and flu season continues to pick up, would be a good thing for all of us.
Okay, point well taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. At this time, may I have a motion to go into executive session for personnel matter, real estate, and litigation?
I move to,
May I
I
have a s-
second.
May I have a second? Okay, let us vote.
Can we vote? I think we.
Raise your hands.
Yeah.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move into executive session. Thank you. May I have a motion to amend the agenda for today to add an executive session? For the purposes of real estate and litigation. Thank you. Raise your hands if you're in favor. Thank you. At this time, we're going to ask Ms. O'Neill, are there any public comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received one public comment from Ed Williams, and that will be attached to the minutes from this meeting and also sent to you all via email. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the November 11, 2021 Board of Directors minutes?
I move to approve.
Then I'll second.
Let us vote. Okay, at this time, we need to vote on the resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, execution and delivery of MARTA sales tax revenue bonds, federally taxable refunding series 2021D, also known as green bonds, and tax exempt refunding series 2021 E-1 and E-2 green bonds. May I have a motion for the approval of the resolution?
Motion to approve?
I second.
Let us vote at this time.
Get your signing hand ready, Madam Chair.
Always have to get used to Mr. McMurray abstaining. With that being said, the motion has passed. The resolution has passed. Thank you. So at this time,
Executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation and real estate matters.
raise your hands. So moved. Thank you.
This is just so you can get your steps in on your Fitbits.
And we're going to reconvene the December 9th, 2021 meeting of the MARTA Board of Directors. And at this time, we need to add an item to the agenda. That item being the proposed litigation settlement. May I have a motion?
A second.
Everybody raise your hand. All right, great. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Drummond. You may start.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Dalvin Drummons, and I'm with Drummons Concrete Construction in Lithonia. I have been riding the MARTA Transit for about 30 years now, and I see that there is a slight need of improvement with the concrete pads as well as the benches. I have created and I have designed some concrete benches that I would like for someone to be able to take a look at to see if it would be of interest to MARTA. I also have 30 years of experience with the MARTA rail system. The first MARTA rail system that I worked on was the College Park. And with the remedial of rubbing and patching and concrete repairs, that is basically the knowledge that I've acquired over the 30 years. And I would like to show someone, maybe not at this time, but at another time, if someone is interested in looking at the work that I perform with the benches, that would be a great help to me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond. I do believe Mr. Manji will get your contact information, and I do believe we also have it here, and we'll reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. At this time, there are no other public comments, and so we will hear from our External Relations Committee. Mr. Ash.
Madam Chair, the External Relations Committee met on Friday, November 19th, 2021, and received the following briefings. A, the 2022 State Legislative Preview. B, the media impressions for July through October of 2021. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ash. At this time, we will hear from Ms. Hardage, the Audit Committee.
Madam Chair, the Audit Committee met on Friday, November 19th, 2021, and received the following briefings. MARTA Annual External Financial Audit for fiscal year 21. The Internal Audit Activity Briefing. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Operations and Safety Committee, Planning and Capital Programs Committee, Mr. Pond.
Madam Chair, the Planning and Capital Programs Committee met on Thursday, November 18, 2021, and approved the following resolutions. A, resolution of the MARTA Board of Directors authorizing the GM to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority for a planning study for a potential top-end I-285 bus transit project. B, resolution of the MARTA Board of Directors authorizing the General Manager, Chief Executive Officer to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Atlanta Region Transit Link Authority, Cobb County, Gwinnett County, Georgia Department of Transportation, and the Atlanta Region Commission to set forth the terms of funding and collaboration for the planning study for a potential top-end 285 bus rapid transit project. C, resolution authorizing Clayton South Lake Bus Rapid Transit Project locally preferred alternative. I request approval of these resolutions.
Second.
Thank you. Let us vote on the resolutions. Thank you, Mr. Pond. The resolutions have passed. At this time, we will hear from the Operations and Safety Committee. Our Executive Board Vice Chair has joined us. Let us hear from Ms. Abdul Salam.
The Operations and Safety Committee met on Thursday, November 18th, 2021, and approved the following resolution. A, resolution authorizing the award of a contract for the procurement of removal and disposal of industrial wastewater and sludge from various MARTA facilities, IFB B4 8661. Request approval of this resolution.
Thank you. Let us vote on the resolution. The resolution has passed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the committee received the following briefing. Demand response pilot. That concludes our report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abdul Salam. At this time, we will hear from Mr. Fryson, Business Management Committee meeting.
Madam Chair, the Business Management Committee met on Thursday, November 18th, 2021, and approved the following resolutions. A resolution authorizing the renewal of MARTA's excess property and liability insurance programs for 2022. A resolution authorizing the award of an armed security guard coverage for revenue operations, IFB B48759. Item C, a resolution authorizing the award of a contract for authority-wide voice, internet, and data telecommunication services, RFPP P49945. Item D, a resolution authorizing a contract for the procurement of Wi-Fi, data telecommunication services for MARTA buses, rail cars, and other equipment, RFPP P49944. Item E, a resolution to modify the Microsoft License Enterprise Agreement B48124. F, a resolution authorizing a cost of living adjustment, COLA, for the retirees and the drop participants of the MARTA non-represented pension plan. And item G, a resolution authorizing the award of a contract for full-line banking, RFP P46375. I request approval of these resolutions.
Second.
Thank you. Having heard the resolutions proposed, would we please vote? The resolutions have passed. Thank you.
The committee received the following briefings. H, Green Bond Refunding Bond Series 2021D, E1 and E2, and FY 2022 September financial highlights and financial performance indicators. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Fryson. At this time, we will hear regarding the item added to the agenda during our special executive session. We'll hear from Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would like to request approval of the matter of Mallard against MARTA, civil action number 16-A 59864 in the State Court of DeKalb County, and I'm requesting approval of $1.5 million for that settlement.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Let us vote.
Thank you.
The litigation is approved. At this time, we will hear from Mr. Ash regarding our upcoming, our nominating committee chair. Thank you, Mr. Ash.
Good morning, Madam Chair, or good afternoon, Madam Chair. This morning, the nominating committee met and unanimously recommends the board approve the following individuals as officers for 2022, all of whom are currently serving as said officers in 2021. For Chair, Rita Scott. For Vice Chair, Roberta Abdul Salam. For Secretary, Roderick Frierson. For Treasurer, Robert Ash. and our immediate past chair who serves ex officio, but nonetheless, we'd like to nominate her, Frida Hardage.
Thank you.
I'll second the nominations.
Thank you. Let us vote at this time regarding the nominations. Does everyone accept the nomination first?
I move to close the floor for additional nominations.
So moved.
I second that.
Thank you. Let us vote at this time. Thank you. We've had a great board, and I look forward to us serving again next year.
Congratulations.
At this time, we need to vote on the 2022 schedule of board and standing committee meetings. I'm sure if it's going out and coming in. Okay. At this time, we need to vote on the 2022 board and standing committee meetings.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Great. I take that everyone has had the opportunity to view them. Let us vote at this time. The upcoming schedule has been approved. Now we will hear from Mr. Parker regarding a proclamation for commending Ms. Elizabeth O'Neill for her service to MARTA.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'd like to offer to the board consideration and ask for the approval of a proclamation that I'd first like to read and then comment on, and also encourage board members to share some thoughts. But the proclamation, be it proclaimed that we commend Elizabeth M. O'Neill for her more than 2 decades of service to the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority. Whereas Elizabeth M. O'Neill began her career with MARTA on January 18, 1995 as Senior Associate Counsel and became the Chief of Litigation in 1999. Whereas she was named Chief Counsel and Assistant General Manager in 2006 and rose to become the Chief Legal Counsel in 2013. Whereas Ms. O'Neill has been a trusted advisor to MARTA's senior leadership and its board of directors in all of her roles. Whereas she has ably led the authority as interim general manager, CEO, from September 17th through March 2018. Whereas Liz will go down in history as the general manager with the best viral video on November 20th, 2017, as a bus drove in front of the Weather Channel's camera, staying there for precisely 12 seconds as the massive Georgia Dome was imploded and drove off only to leave a trail of dust where the dome once stood. Whereas Liz has played an instrumental role in the growth and modernization of the authority, from the evolution of the token fares to the breeze cards, Clayton County joining the system, and the City of Atlanta's historic vote to increase the sales tax to support transit expansion. Whereas in her 26 years at MARTA, Liz has made an undeniable mark on the authority, its staff, and its brand. Now therefore, be it resolved that the MARTA Board of Directors, on behalf of MARTA's General Manager, Jeffrey Parker, and the entire MARTA family, express our sincere appreciation and gratitude for Elizabeth O'Neill's dedication and commitment to the authority, and congratulate her on the occasion of her retirement. And be it further resolved, on December 9th, 2021, it be proclaimed as Elizabeth O'Neill Day to honor her accomplishments and victories on behalf of MARTA that are too many to name. I'd like to personally thank Liz. She's been a great friend. We met many, many years ago when I moved here to Atlanta, and she was one of the many people who welcomed me, and we began our friendship then. I appreciate her professionalism and her really ability to help me through thorny issues, and being so gracious in leading this organization before I was able to get hired by the board. And you're a dear friend, and we all respect and appreciate everything that you've done over the years, and we will miss you tremendously. We're excited for your new chapter in life, and excited for the additions to your family, and I'm certain that we will all remain in touch and continue our friendship. We're going to having an event where the board and staff will be able to recognize Liz properly in an informal setting, and we're going to do that after the birth of her next grandchild, so we all look forward to that. So, Madam Chair, if you would be so honored to entertain this proclamation, and there may be some comments that some of the other board members want to make.
Are there any comments? Go ahead, Mr. Durrett.
Liz, you have been steadfast, you've been dependable, you've been responsive. You've set a very high standard that Peter is going to have a hard time living up to. And your service to this board, when you stepped in to be interim general manager and CEO, made it very difficult for us to make a decision on even entertaining this guy's place in that role. I just want to, having worked with you for longer than any other board member here now, let you know that we appreciate you greatly, and we will miss you enormously.
Go ahead, Ms. Hardage.
Liz, I just want to say thank you as well. Steadfast came to my mind as well as your honesty, as well as your, you can give us history lessons that most people can't, and we appreciate that and need that from time to time. So we want you to remain intact. The MARTA Act, you're probably the only one that can quote it for us, but we certainly could not have been where we are today without you, and we greatly appreciate all that you've done for us, both professionally as well as personally. And I really consider you a very dear friend. Thank you.
Mr. Ash.
Liz, as the person with the second longest tenure with you, I second guess other people's decisions for a living. And you alone among many have never given me cause to second guess yours. You have provided an absolute lack of drama. You have provided sound legal advice. You have steered us through rocky and storm-infested waters. As our lawyer and as our interim, and as just a colleague at the bar, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to have gotten to know you over the last decade. I am a better person for it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I would like to say that I really appreciate. I am probably one of those that have known you the least on the board, except for a couple others. Except for a couple others. But I want to say that each time I've called, you've responded. I have your cell. Anytime anyone gives me a cell, I use it. So I want to really thank you, even on vacation. I called not knowing you were on vacation, and you responded. And what I did not hear was any animosity. And for me, that meant a lot. So I understand you're going to enjoy the new grandbaby. I know how important they are. They are our continuation of life. And so thank you so much for being available to answer all the questions that I've had. And enjoy your retirement.
just want to say very briefly, thank you all for having given me the opportunity to be here at MARTA for all those years. It greatly enriched my life, the people that I met here, the people that I worked with, the people that I've worked for. It just gave me an opportunity that I can't imagine I would have had anywhere else to be involved in issues that matter to so many people, and for that I am grateful, as well as for all of your kind words here today. So thank you very much.
So at this time, we are going to ask that the proclamation be accepted and voted upon.
A second.
All right, let us raise our hands. The proclamation has passed. Thank you so much. I think our clap was a little early, but we're excited.
You didn't abstain, did you? I did not. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any, I see your light on, Ms. Hardage. Are there any other matters to come before the board? Are there any other comments from the board? The board is adjourned. Thank you. We'll see each other hopefully again.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you.